Welcome to the Rockstar Principles Podcast, coming straight to you from Rock and Roll, USA, covering the latest and greatest in educational leadership trends, news, and awesomeness for principals all over the world. Now, here are your hosts, the boss, John Ross, and the Doctor of Proctors, Nick Indeglio.
Welcome back to the Rockstar Principles Podcast. John and Nick coming to you here from my office today. Doing a little recording and in the office after hours.
Lionville Middle School.
Swinging by here. And I wanted to kick things off today talking about an article that I stumbled upon actually from one of our Twitter followers. And now, you know what, I set it up saying I wanted to make sure I gave this guy props. And when after I turn it over to you, Nick, I'm going to search this guy so I make sure I give him props. But somebody that we follow and that follows us on Twitter tweeted out this link a while back from Forbes magazine, and it's an online article written by Selena Rezvani, and the article is entitled "Why Complaining is Killing Your Reputation at Work." And in the article, Ms. Rezvani talks about how when she was young and started her career in a very unsatisfying place that she was working, looked kind of like a dead-end place to her, but she was collecting the paycheck and spent kind of every day complaining about things with one of her friends, and then eventually one of her friends actually said to her, wow, you complain about this place a lot. I've got to say, it's bringing me down even more. And she kind of had this moment, where it made her realize that complaining wasn't helping. And that's something that I know I have. I had conversations with Nick and with my assistant principals and with my teachers about, how complaining is in a sense natural, but how it's really not helpful. So she goes on to talk about the surprising statistic, actually, a Gallup survey that showed only 13% of employees worldwide are engaged in their work. I was very surprised and depressed to hear that. Only 13% feel engaged at their work. But that how disengagement leads to negativity, obviously, and how that can be this never-ending spiral, this downhill spiral, where people feel the need to complain. And that complaints are not doing you or your career any favors. As I like to say to people often, there's a time and a place to bring things up. It's not that I'm a yes man and I only want to hear positivity, but I like people that bring me solutions along with their complaints. If people have something that they want to talk about, they have solutions or suggestions, proposals that go along with it. But the gist of the article, she breaks it down into 6 points here that she's telling complainers the next time you feel the urge. This is the way the non-whiners, as she puts it, view you. If you're somebody that's a whiner, this is the way the non-whiners view you. And this is the part that really hit home with me.
Yeah, this is what hit you between the eyes.
Yeah. The people that are not complainers, when they hear you complaining, here's what they're thinking. Number one, they think you're unproductive. In other words, it's hard to be a top producer if you have the time to always be complaining. Rather than complaining, maybe if you were working to do something about it, you could be fixing that, problem solving, researching ways to fix things rather than always complaining. Number two, they assume, I think this is natural, they assume that you complain about them as well. That, when you're somebody that complains about others, at the moment someone else, your audience changes, you're now going to complain about the people who aren't there. So if you're complaining in my presence, what are you saying about me when I'm not around? Number three, they don't trust you. That, when somebody's a complainer, people are not going to put their trust in you, that they're not going to feel as though that you offer anything, and they're not going to respect the things that you have to say because you're not considering others, that you're just kind of looking things from very myopically rather than viewing things as an opportunity to improve the situation. Number four, they think you can't cope with change, which is really a big one. A lot of people really struggle with that, I know. She goes on to say, people's oftentimes it's displeasing to go through change, but that we all cope with it in different ways. And if you come across as somebody that's intolerant of these kinds of things, that you're not open to it. And oftentimes, what if we didn't change? Look where we would be if we were not open to change. We would still be, in one-room schoolhouses having kids work on easels with chalk, and I don't know, maybe some people would prefer that to what we're doing now. But
some definitely would. There are definitely some. Definitely some that would.
The fifth one, they think you don't take responsibility. If you're a complainer, you put responsibility on others. You find the fault in others rather than looking at your own behavior. And then number 6, people flat out don't want to be associated with you. And this is the one I hear quite often from my optimists or non-whiners, or however you want to view it, is that, that I'll have people that in a faculty meeting or something will complain, and then immediately in my office after the meeting there'll be, a couple of people, or the next time they see me, look, what was said, I don't feel that way. I don't want to have anything to do with that. They make a point to disassociate themselves with it. So those 6 points I thought were great, and I retweeted this. I published it on my own personal Facebook wall. I tried to spread this as much as I possibly could, but I thought it was a really, really cool article by Selena Rezvani in Forbes magazine on Forbes.com. So Nick, what do you think?
Forbes, a lot of great articles on Forbes.
Yeah.
Not always what I would call this is a soft piece in terms of,
Sure.
She's not targeting a whole bunch of, quantitative data, but it's a perception article. And there's so much truth to it in terms of the way that we perceive people who complain. And it's twofold. I think it's important that for principals especially, one, that you don't become one of the complainers.
As a principal, right.
As a principal. But
right.
2, that as the principal, I think there are times when it is our duty to point out to the complainer, if they are in the salvageable, 80% of the staff, that you're kind of leaning over to this one side. You're complaining an awful lot lately, and it's just something you might want to be aware of. Because I think people who tend to be conscientious, everyone can get caught in a rut. Everyone can get, an event that happens, or a trail of events, or a train of events where you just become negative for a while, and
Sure.
things aren't going well, and you wind up in the complaining rut, and that's just kind of where you are and what's happening. And sometimes it just takes someone to kind of mention it to bring you out of it. So I think that works both ways. And again, it speaks to, at our level, we have assistant principals to help us. It might be more difficult for our elementary friends, especially during difficult time periods during the year, and state testing, or whatever is going on.
Right.
It's a natural human emotion. And I think my last comment on this really goes back to when we talked about the happiness effect with the Sean Acor, the TED Talk, and then his book, The Happiness Advantage, it's called, and he now has a sequel to that out, which kind of tells you how to set the stage for happiness. But if you choose a positive attitude in advance, everything's going to seem better on the whole. And those are important points. We actually had our director of K-12 education sent us a link today, Rob Reed, on Twitter. What's his Twitter handle at? I forget his Twitter handle.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have to look.
Well, yeah, it's there. We'll tweet it out when we do we post the podcast. But the article was basically saying you can't be both. You can't experience the two emotions of gratitude and stress at the same time. So you actually have to relieve your stress before you can feel gratitude. And it's similar to what Acor's research shows in the terms of you're much more productive and much more engaged when you are, quote unquote, happy or in a better state of mind. So
yeah, and it's funny because as we say, everything that's old is new again, and things are cyclical in education. I think back. Probably 10, 12 years ago, we did the fish philosophy in my former school district. And one of the tenets of the fish philosophy is choose your attitude. And you just said that, and that's what kind of made it jump out at me. And the first time I heard that was the first time in my life that was ever something that I fully understood.
Yeah.
That your attitude is something you choose.
Yeah.
I had always viewed my attitude as a reflection of what was happening to me. And that I was in a good mood or in a bad mood based on what was happening to me, and that it was out of my control.
Yep.
And I had no power over it. When in fact, it's the exact opposite. And all you have to do is look at people that are in the most dire circumstances. And you can think of examples in terms of medicine, people, they're medical situation, people with cancer, people with disease, people with, you look at some of the inspirational people you see on YouTube, people missing all of their limbs. I've seen, that just have this amazing attitude about life, that rather than being down and choosing to have the response of woe is me and this is how awful, they said, no, I'm taking life by the short hairs, and I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to choose every day to be a positive day, and I'm going to make a difference in other people's lives. Bring it even more down to in our profession, right? How many people do we both know, and through our experience in our lives, that are working in dire circumstances?
Yes.
People that are working in inner cities where the kids are facing crime and no support at home and squalor living situations, and even people in very, very rural areas in similar situations. We're very, very lucky. We recognize all the time, frequently, talk about how lucky we are to work and live and raise our families where we're able to do that, because it's not the case for everybody. And yet there's people that work in those situations that just have this mentality. They just have this attitude. I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to do everything I can to make a difference, and I'm going to have a positive attitude about it. And there's going to be crappy stuff that goes down. There's going to be things that I could dwell on if I wanted to, or I could choose to do something about it. I could take the attitude. I can choose the attitude of, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to make a difference. And people do it all the time, and I find that just incredibly inspiring, mainly because I was not that way. I was totally not that way. And when it started with the fish philosophy, and as with all things, it led to Todd Whitaker, and a lot of the stuff that he's talked about, shifting the monkey, even his most recent stuff, just about how you can choose. It's how we decide to handle these things is really what determines who we are as both a person and a professional.
It's funny, you take the fish philosophy to its roots before that, and you get Jim Rohn's quote, which is either you run the day or the day runs you. And that's that whole notion of control and you setting the pace and deciding how things are going to operate for you. Obviously, I'm sure everyone listening is extremely familiar with fish philosophy, but you can follow them on Twitter at Fish Philosophy, FISH Philosophy. So they do have a Twitter account, and we're going to follow them momentarily.
And while we're giving shout-outs on Twitter, I did find the gentleman who I first saw this article, who tweeted this article. His name is Scott Rhodes, and Scott is a principal in Hendersonville, North Carolina. It says he's a high school principal in Hendersonville, North Carolina. His Twitter handle is @Nates_Dad1. So that's @NATES_DAD and the number 1. And Scott, in addition to having great taste because he follows us, is also an Eagles fan, it looks like, even though he's in North Carolina, unless that's his school logo. Maybe they have the same logo as the Philadelphia Eagles. But thanks to Scott, because when I saw that and retweeted it, it was a really, really cool article for everybody, but particularly if you're in a leadership position. And I don't know, we've had this conversation with a lot of other leaders that this is something that we struggle with, and trying to get people to understand that there's a place and time for constructive criticism and the sharing of ideas and wanting to improve. I'm all about all that stuff. I'm all about the examining the way we do things, and nothing is ever off the table as long as it's in the best interest of kids. That everything should be considered. But the flip side of that is people that just want to complain, just want to have bitch sessions, just want to, that's the last thing I wanted to mention about it. When we did that, we've talked before about restorative practices, and we did that restorative practices training. And one of the things that we talked about in that is about just engaging our employees and trying to, find opportunities for problem solving and reflecting through restorative practices. And one of our trainers, I asked him about how, when people come into our office as a principal, and they just want to unload their burden. They just want to just bitch about stuff. And I said to him, my struggle is I want people to feel as though they can do that, but I also want people to take ownership. I also want people, with ideas. I don't want it to just become that they can dump things on me. Again, back to Whitaker, I want to shift the monkey back on them.
Let's find a solution.
And he said, when you do that, and this was great advice that I want to make sure I shared, he said, when people come in and you see it heading down that road, right? he said an important thing to do is to just politely interrupt them and just say to them, listen, I want to hear what you're saying. What you're saying is important to me. But I need to know right now, is this just you want to get this stuff off your chest so you can leave my office and be unburdened with it? You just want you don't want me to do anything about it.
Right.
You just have this thing that's bothering you and you want to get it off your chest and then go on with your day? Or is this something that you have an issue with and you want addressed?
A solution to it.
Because if it's scenario 1, then let's go. Give it to me. Let me hear it. Let's talk about it and then be gone and done and leave here. If it's scenario number 2, you need to come at me with solutions. I need to know what you're going to do to make this better. I need to know what role you play in this, so that people at least know when they come into your office that they have to pick one or the other. That it can't just be this shifting the monkey onto our back and saying, here's this huge problem. I have no solution to it. Good luck. You figure it out. And then when they don't hear any follow-up from you, now they can bitch and complain about you never following through with things.
Exactly.
So he said it's really good to identify that stuff with the person when they're in your office doing that.
And what it is they want.
Right. What's their outcome?
But since we were giving out those Twitter handles, let's give out the author's Twitter handle as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's Philadelphia, she's local. So maybe we can, get her on the podcast at some point.
Have some more input from her on this. I'd love to hear more of what she has to say about it.
So again, her name is Selena Rezvani, and her handle is at SELENA, Selena, all one word, REZVANI. So Selena Rezvani, all one word, from Philadelphia. And just her little bio: speaker trainer on women in leadership, award-winning Washington Post columnist, author of a book called Pushback, and a consultant to organizations who want to develop women leaders. So that's a great...
It's a lot of stuff.
Sure is, and a great article.
All right, awesome. So that's it for this input of the... Input?
This input into the computer?
This segment, and we'll be right back with more. Stay tuned for more of the Rockstar Principles podcast.
And now a word from our fake sponsors. But we'd really love if they were our real sponsors. Seriously, we would love it.
For Dr. Pepper, here's Air Supply.
To be a pepper, original like a pepper, all you gotta do is taste. To know the pleasure of a flavor you will treasure, all you gotta do is taste. The flavor's got a feeling, original and appealing, and all you gotta do is taste. To be a pepper, open up a Dr. Pepper, and all you got to do is taste. To be a pepper, open up a Dr. Pepper, and all you got to do is taste.
Welcome back to the Rockstar Principles podcast and a new segment that we have titled, You Just Bought Yourself Another Saturday. Famous quotes and scenes.
Fine.
Fine. You want another one? Movies.
Yes.
Movies about principals, education, teachers, primarily focusing on principals. We've talked a number of times on the podcast about the horrible misrepresentation of principals via the media. And we're going to take some of the best and or worst examples and talk about them here on the podcast. We've got a special guest with us while his master schedule is running through the computer. Master scheduler Rob Farina, assistant principal, is here to join us. He's also a movie buff and quite the... I don't know what the right word is. You have a lot of movie knowledge.
I don't know where you're going with this.
A useless knowledge. He's a fountain of useless knowledge.
Exactly. So we opened up today's episode with a little clip from The Breakfast Club. We're going to play it again for you right now. And so just stay tuned, and then we'll talk about it in a minute.
Let's just put it on an endless loop for
over
like 5
and
straight
over.
minutes.
That's a great scene.
No, just one more time. All right, one more time we'll play.
All right, so this is the principal, and this is the head custodian having a conversation.
Carl, don't be a goof. I'm trying to make a serious point here. Carl, I've been teaching for 22 years. And each year, these kids get more and more arrogant. Bullshit, man. Come on, Vern. The kids haven't changed. You have. You took a teaching position because you thought it'd be fun, right? Thought you could have summer vacations off. And then you found out it was actually work. That really bummed you out. These kids turned on me. They think I'm a big joke. Come on. Listen, Vern, if you were 16, what would you think of you, huh? Hey, Carl. You think I give one rat's ass what these kids think of me? Yes, I do. You think about this. When you get old, these kids, when I get old, they're going to be running the country. Yeah. Now, this is the thought that wakes me up in the middle of the night. That when I get older, these kids are going to take care of me. I wouldn't count on it.
All right, and we're back. I'm going to let John lead
Can
off
I
with
ask
this
something
one.
first?
Oh, yeah.
This is an age-old question for me.
Mm-hmm.
Goes back to even when the movie came out.
Okay.
And I need, and short of bringing John Hughes back from the dead, is Vernon the principal?
Or the assistant principal. He's the principal.
Or is he a teacher?
No, he's the
At
principal.
no point in the movie, is he referred to as the principal. And I've watched that movie several times.
Okay, but
looking specifically for that.
No, you're right.
So who would be running Saturday detention? Is it necessarily an administrator running Saturday detention?
It's not necessarily that, because Saturday detentions in a lot of schools are run by teachers. However, there is a scene when in the very beginning, when he's setting them all up, and he goes, "My office is right down the hallway, and I'm going to be able to hear
Teachers
everything
have
you're
offices.
doing."
For high school, that could be a department office.
Yeah.
I guess. See, I just don't think.
I just because he's a jerk, I maintain that he's a teacher.
There's that.
But go back to and before we talk about their conversation, you pointed out a great thing when we were talking about this, about Carl.
Oh, yeah. If you, and I'm sure, I mean, The Breakfast Club
By
is such
now,
a classic
everyone has
movie.
seen it, yeah. It's a seminal piece.
This is what I like about it. They never reference it specifically. However, at multiple points throughout the movie, when they're in different parts of the school, and you see plaques hanging on the wall or old news articles hanging on the wall, just like you would in any high school, you see Carl, class of 69 or whatever it was, and he was man of the year, and he was the big man on campus, and he was like this hero.
So great.
Who is, now the head custodian at the school, or the custodian at the school. And, again, it's just there for you to extrapolate.
John Hughes is the single most unappreciated director, writer, producer in the history of American film.
But
He doesn't get he's pushed aside as this teen comedy.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and what people forget, as we talked about with Jen in our previous podcast,
yes,
he wrote National Lampoon's Vacation. He was the writer for the trilogy. For Vacation, European Vacation, and Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
The guy was just a phenomenal entertainer, and was responsible for some of the greatest movies, particularly comedies, but some of the most spectacular movies in American
the
film.
subtle humor and the messages that go along with it. Because the thing, and John Hughes was great at this. Yeah, Vernon's an ass, but throughout the course of the movie, he's making good points.
Sure.
He really is. He's just going about it in a way that makes
there are points now as adults that we think are good. When the movie first came out, we didn't think they were good points when we saw them. And this is the thing about this whole conversation that I love. This is why I wanted to lead off with this clip, is that we are now that generation.
Yeah.
That he's talking about. So when he's making the point about these kids are going to someday be running the country, and the kicker at the end about how someday they're going to take care of me, and Carl says, "I wouldn't count on it," which is one of my favorite lines ever in the history of movies. That's us. Like, that's the scary part. Imagine what Vernon would think if we're now the principals.
Yeah.
We're now the ones that are running the show, the ones that he was so worried about.
And even then, yeah, I mean, it's to watch the movie again is flipping it on its head a little bit, because you're watching it more. You're not at the same level as you were with the main characters when you saw originally. We're looking at it a little bit above, kind of, not from Vern's eyes, obviously, because he's jaded and he is an ass. But you're right. It's almost
and it's great too that, and you guys will get to see this someday, to watch this with your kids. I just watched this with my oldest, who's 15, recently, and to see it through her eyes is just. I mean, this is one of those movies. Whenever it's on, I put it on, and I can quote the lines back and forth about the entire thing. So, any thoughts, Farina? You've been awful quiet sitting over there in general.
You guys are making phenomenal points.
Oh, thanks. All right, so let's keep going.
I'm not the best color man in baseball for no reason.
Another great movie line.
Yes.
So the points I want to make just about their conversation. First of all, when Carl says, Vernon says something about the kids are getting more and more arrogant, and Carl says, the kids haven't changed, it's you. That's like bingo. That's when we have conversations, and I'm talking about people our age. I'm not talking about people. I mean, I'm 20 some years in. I'm not talking about people that are at the end of their career.
No,
I'm talking about he says I'm 22 years in. That's where I am in my career right now. So I'm talking about my colleagues, people that came in the profession when I started, that talk about. I hear them, and younger. That's the even more depressing thing. Yeah. I hear younger 25, 27-year-olds talking about these kids and how they're different and everything. And I hear that, and it sends shivers down my spine. It's like fingers down a chalkboard. I just can't stand that because it's the absolute truth. Kids are the same. They're the same. They're dealing with different things, but it's the whole generational argument. We're supposed to be jealous of them because of their youth. They're supposed to hate us because they don't understand the things we understand. That goes back, back to at least back to the 50s and 60s when kids were allowed to start having a voice. I mean, prior to that, kids were seen and not heard. But it goes at least back that far.
I'm sure 2,000 years ago you'd hear some Roman talking
about
how kids in the Citadel aren't like they used to be.
Right. And every generation that says that now, you can say to them, I'm sure the adults when you were a kid said the same thing about your generation, and they would deny it, but it's absolutely true.
And it's almost, and that's what John Hughes is trying to get across at this point,
right.
Which is, and it's not a bad lesson for us to reflect on. It's that we are the ones who've changed. It is not the kids. The technology's different. Yep. It looks a little bit different. As Rocky said, to his son in Rocky Balboa in Rocky 6, the kid said, things have changed, Dad. And he goes, only the clothes have changed. It's a great line.
We'll get to Rocky later.
Yeah, we'll get that's later down the line. But my point being, the things that we say have changed. The reasons we say kids are different. Those are things the adults changed. Right. This whole culture of having your kids in a million activities. There's no playtime anymore.
True.
Kids
oh my God,
kids
Nick,
don't go outside and play.
Absolutely.
We did that.
Yep.
We did it. Our kids didn't decide to enroll in 7,000 different activities. We made those choices for them. Whether it's good or bad or indifferent doesn't matter. That's not what the kids chose. If we had them in 0 activities, they'd still be doing the same things we did when we were kids. Doesn't make it better, doesn't make it worse. It's just the way it is. And I think it's hard for us to see that sometimes. But yeah, that's a big part of it.
Thoughts, Rob?
Concur.
Okay, good. Rob concurs. And then the last thing the point I wanted to make too is Vernon says, "You think I give a rat's ass what these kids think?" I mean, that's the go-to for anybody, in these situations where they say, first of all, if you don't care what your kids think about you, you're in the wrong profession. I'm sorry, but you absolutely should care. I'm not saying it should matter. I'm not saying it should necessarily change the way you are, the way you do things, but it should make a difference to you. And what would you think of you if you were them? That Carl says to him, and that's profound. That's really profound. That's really great advice for teachers, for principals. If you're a principal, if you were a student in your school, what would you think of you? Mm-hmm. If you're a teacher, if you were a child in your class, what would you think of you?
That's a hard way to look at yourself.
It is. It's very, very hard. But I got to tell you, speaking from experience, that's the best way to really give yourself an idea of whether or not you're truly effective in what you do.
I was talking to a kid.
Carl's a philosopher, man.
He is.
He's straight up a philosopher.
He is. He's a Zen master. He walks the earth.
There's a reason why he starts with John Lennon as the person he wanted to be
exactly.
when he grows up.
And then of course, what's the first thing Vern tells him? Stop goofing
Don't
around.
Don't be a goof.
Yeah. So I was talking to this kid in the subway who's going into his senior year in our home district where we live, and he was talking about his math course. The conversation started. He asked what I did. I said I'm a principal in Downingtown. He was like, "Oh, I'm a senior." Some principal shifting happened in Daniel Boone, where our district is. And he was talking about a math teacher, and he goes, a lot of the kids didn't really connect with her. That was the worst grade I got. He goes, but I guess, as principals, there's not much you guys can do. He's like, it's nice when they can listen to the kids. And the point I made to him was, I said, we talk to a lot of kids, and if the consensus is this person's not really a good teacher, 8, 9 times out of 10, person's not really a good teacher.
Right.
It's just, in terms of what you can do about it, it becomes a different story. But it's that notion of what do the kids think about you is true. Because more so than me going in once or twice a year and observing, especially at the high school level. Now, and it is different, I think, at the middle school level, because the kids are developing in a way that doesn't always allow, the proper frame, even though most times it does. But, minimally at the high school level, the kids are on. They're spot on with what they're thinking and what they're saying about the teachers. And it's if these people would set aside, even the principals at times, if you would sit aside and say, hey, how do they see me? It might be good. It's good self-reflection.
It really is.
And I would say
Oh, yeah, let's go, Rob. All right.
a lot of that too becomes self-fulfilling prophecy and urban legend too, because I always felt in the few schools that I taught in, that first year or first 2 years is the hardest year, because you're building your book and you're building your reputation as a teacher, and then you become known as a teacher kids want to have or a teacher kids despise. And if you're a kid or a teacher that kids despise, you're pretty much, your year's set no matter what you do. There are going to be a vast majority of kids who aren't going to give you the benefit of the doubt, aren't going to go into your class with an open mind. You're going to be that persona that you've been set up to be. And I think that to me, I know when I shifted districts and came out here, that was the biggest thing that I kind of dreaded over was, what is my reputation out here going to be? The thing that I think a lot of people have to realize is there's really only one person who's responsible for that, and that's yourself.
Absolutely. And don't make the mistake, you made me think when you said that too, don't make the mistake of thinking that we're saying, that you should be a kid's friend before you're their teacher.
No.
I mean, the people that will, shoot this kind of stuff down would say, oh, well, you want me to be buddies with him? No. There's millions of teachers out there that know the line and that know the way to find that balance between being truly caring and coming across as compassionate and caring and warm and welcoming and concerned about kids, and also knowing when it's time to crack the whip and when it's time to get serious and work and do things. So it's not at all about being friends with them or having the kids call you by your first name or something like that. It could be further from the truth, actually.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'd say in my own experience, the greatest compliment I ever got from a student was, he said, my favorite part about your class is you can scream your head off and lose it on us, and then 30 seconds later, it's all in the past. We get a fresh slate right after something bad happens. And, I didn't click with kids because I let them walk all over me. I clicked with kids because they knew the boundaries, and if they overstepped them, they knew they were going to get screamed at. That's the Italian in me. Since I've come out to Downingtown, I don't yell that much.
But you don't drive a Cadillac.
Yes, no, I do not.
More on that later. We'll touch on that more later. So that's the first, what's it called? You just bought yourself another Saturday?
Bought yourself another Saturday.
I love that title. It's fantastic. I'm going to have a hard time not referencing Breakfast Club again.
Oh, well, I think we're gonna bring it up again and again.
There's a lot of movies to get through before we come back around to Breakfast Club again, but I feel the need to at least one more time, because Vernon is such a great character to use as an example of what not to do. That we'll have to go back to him.
He's not the best educational-based character named Vernon.
Uh-oh, here we go.
And who would be the best?
Dean Vernon Wormer.
See, I never knew the first name.
Someone's got to put their big
Dean
foot
Wormer.
down. And that big foot is me.
All right, you just bought yourself another Saturday.
And just a teaser. For
I
the next one.
preferred to go with the title show "Dick Some Respect," but we
Then I have to make the podcast rated PG and all that kind of crazy stuff. As a teaser, a movie you might not expect to be on our list for the next segment is going to be Uncle Buck. And you might have to think long and hard if you're not a huge Uncle Buck fan.
Again,
but
a John Hughes movie.
another John
Uncle
Hughes
Buck,
movie, and there is a classic scene in that movie
awesome
where
scene.
Here's a quarter.
Yep, there you go. That's
it.
enough. Don't
That's
say
enough.
anymore.
Yeah,
Don't say anymore.
All right, we'll be back.
Thanks for helping RSP top the charts in the Edu podcast world. Keep it real with Twisted Steel and School Appeal.